In this episode, we'll go through a new principle, a new power principle that you can layer onto the ones that you're already using, or you can start with this one and then layer the other ones on top of this one. But either way, if you combine all the different principles, as you already know, the different power principles, it'll make your life immeasurably better in terms of your performance, the way you feel, the way your body looks, in all aspects of health and your life in general. So let's dive in. So in this episode, specifically the power principle is exposure to sunlight. So we'll be talking about the whys, why would you bother, and how, what protocol should you use if you want to follow a specific protocol, or how do you start? Now, before you go into this thinking it's some sort of woo-woo shit, right, hang on. Research into sort of light and the different wavelengths and the impact that it has on the human body has been done for over 100 years at this point, and even a Nobel Prize has even been awarded with regards to light research. So what we'll do is we'll discuss a protocol to increase your testosterone, your energy, your mood, your immune system, and other things totally for free, right? So obviously, first of all, you shouldn't be surprised that light, sun specifically, has a huge impact on the human body, because we've spent thousands of years being exposed to sunlight and evolving within the context of sunlight, and it playing a crucial role in terms of things like our circadian rhythm, our sleep cycle, when we go to sleep, when we feel tired, our energy levels, all these things, right? Except that now we're kind of moving away from that. So the first thing to probably know is what is light, because all we see is, obviously, we go outside and we see this big shining object in the sky, and we might not know what light actually is. And all it is essentially electromagnetic radiation that's visible to the naked eye. That's it. And this radiation comes in different wavelengths and colors. So you might have heard of different wavelengths. Some of these, the human eye can see. Some of them the human eye can't see, but other animals are able to see and observe. Infrared is a great example. Humans can't see infrared, but certain animals, certain insects, certain fish, and other predatory animals can see infrared as a kind of radiation and heat that comes off bodies. So let's go into the actual good stuff, right? The stuff that's important for you as a human being. Now, we will only be covering sunlight, and we won't be looking at specific light therapies that are used for treatment in certain diseases or to improve life and those kind of things. We'll be looking specifically at the big ball in the sky and impact that it has, right? We have two main ways in which sunlight impacts us. The one that we generally think about is the eye, because we see it and the way that light impacts, obviously, in our eyes. But the second one that's crucial is our skin, the contact that sunlight makes on our skin. Skin is an active hormone-producing organ with a huge amount of power and pull across the entire body. So every single cell in your body, in your skin, but also in your body in general, responds to light, right? Not just skin and not just the tanning you get in summer. In fact, the different wavelengths that we spoke about earlier penetrate to different levels of the body and therefore have a different impact. So the most obvious one that we observe with our eyes is UVB, or ultraviolet, which is a wavelength responsible for tanning, burning, and skin damage if you spend too much time in the sun, right? But it also has a huge pro side. It has an impact on your sex drive. It has an impact on attraction. It has an impact on testosterone. So during the summer months, you might have noticed this in yourself, or you might have, if you pay attention to how you feel around different times of the year, you might have noticed that your sex drive goes up, and people's desire to find a partner increases. And that's not a coincidence, right? Sunlight on the skin, specifically UVB, that doesn't penetrate particularly deeply, or doesn't penetrate deep at all, it only affects the surface of the skin, has been found to increase testosterone and estrogen, but in the right ratios in the body. And as a result, it does things like it enhances female attractiveness by males. It changes the desire to mate or to find a partner, as I mentioned earlier, and it changes fertility, right? Increases fertility in females or women, since we're talking specifically about humans in this case. In this case, right? So if you're trying to get pregnant, or if your partner's trying to get pregnant, and you live indoors all the time, and you don't have exposure to the sun, this might be something to add to what you do in your daily life to make the whole process of getting pregnant easier, because it will have an impact. And the increase in testosterone that you get will probably not only impact sex drive, but it can also impact the other things that testosterone impacts, such as drive and energy. And you might be wondering, does someone with darker skin need more exposure to sun to get the same impact? And the answer is yes. Right? People with light skin have light skin because they've developed in places with not a lot of sun, so the impact that sun has to be stronger when we do have exposure to sun, whereas people with darker skin obviously have developed over time in areas with a lot of sun exposure, so to prevent damage on the skin gets darker, right? And this is why people tan also in summer, is to be able to deal with the amount of UVB radiation that we get on the skin. So yes, so if you're of a darker complexion, you will need more exposure to sun to get the same impact as someone of lighter complexion. So you might be asking yourself, in addition to this, how much exposure should you be getting to experience the great benefits in terms of things like your testosterone? And we'll get to that, right? We'll talk about the protocol later on. The next thing we want to dive into is the impact that it has on other elements of your life. So we've spoken about testosterone, we've spoken about fertility, we've spoken about sex drive, we've spoken about attraction. The next part is pain tolerance. Now this is kind of a weird one, but essentially UVB light, so again, the light, the ultraviolet light from the sun directly on our skin, increases our tolerance for pain, right? So our pain threshold decreases in the winter months, and our pain threshold increases in the summer months. And this is down to UVB both in the eyes and on the skin. The reason being that your body increases something called beta endorphins, which essentially act as a painkiller within the body, right? So this might not have a direct impact on your life in the way that you think of things, unless you're struggling with pain. Right, unless you're someone who has current pain somewhere in the body, you're recovering from an injury, whatever it is, then it might have an impact. But a more important one, really for most people, is mood and well-being. So sunlight has an impact. Again, no surprise. We generally feel happier, we generally feel better in summer. And it specifically impacts your mood, but it also regulates things like your appetite. So there are obviously things that you've heard of, most likely things like seasonal affective disorder, which is essentially where people feel a bit down, almost depressed in winter. And the way that people treat that is with light. Now, the vast majority of people listening to this probably don't suffer from seasonal affective disorder, although you might. And what needs to happen to improve your mood, whether you suffer from seasonal affective disorder or not, do you just generally want to be in a better mood, you just really feel better, you just want to feel more energized and have more drive overall, is again UVB early in the morning on the skin and in the eyes. It'll impact your mood directly. This means that you have to get exposure. When I say early light, it means before midday, right? You can't replicate this with artificial light in the evening. If you do get UVB exposure in the evening in some way, shape, or form, and the pathway, right, in the human body to improve mood is activated at the wrong time, it actually has the opposite impact. So it decreases things like dopamine and the other molecules in terms of the amount that are in the body that make you feel good. So you actually feel worse with that. So it's important this happens early in the day. Again, if you just think about the way we've evolved, how we would normally, hundreds, thousands of years ago, the way we would live is we would have exposure to light in the morning. Now, if you find that you have a generally shitty mood and are grumpy, then this is a reason alone to get out and spend some time outside so that you're potentially happier with yourself, you're more agreeable with the people around you, you're better with your family. It obviously translates across all kinds of areas of life. Being in a better mood obviously makes you a happier person, right? It'll also directly impact your sleep. So we're not going to speak about this in a huge amount of detail because we've spoken about sleep. You can listen to that in the other Power Principle episode regarding sleep. Now, another crucial one is immune health. So getting more UVB from sunlight actually increases or improves your immune system, right? And the way that it works is your brain is obviously connected to your spleen and all the other parts of your body, and UVB light triggers and activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is essentially your fight or flight system, which is what you probably have heard of it called in the past. And your spleen then deploys more immune cells and molecules that help combat and fight illness and infection. And this is one of the reasons why in the summer months people get less sick than in winter. In winter, people very rarely spend time outside because they're cold, or when they do, they wear a lot of clothes and their skin and everything's hidden. And people are just, from an immune standpoint, weaker in winter than they are in summer. So what about the protocol? It's probably what you're asking yourself, right? I know all these things, I've learned all these things in terms of the impact that I have, and I'm convinced this is what I need to do. I need to spend time outside. What's the protocol that you should follow? How much time should you spend? Now, that's a difficult question to answer. But we'll answer it in terms of the way that it's been done in studies to find that it has an impact on testosterone and those kind of things. Right, so the base protocol that was used during some of the studies is 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week during midday sun. Why midday sun? Because that's when the sun is strongest and it'll have the biggest impact on the body. And you can do this in winter. It'll make your life immeasurably better. And the more principles, like I said at the beginning, that you layer one on top of the other, the more principles that you lay on top of the other, the better your life will become. And the easier it will be to achieve the life that you want, to perform at the level that you want, and to be the person that you want to be. Obviously, this isn't medical advice. This is just information for you to take and to apply it the way you want, but also don't be an idiot and go out and stare directly into the sun or get burnt, right? Apply caution and behave like a reasonable person.